Welcome, everyone, to today's show. A boomer and a Gen Xer walk into a bar, coming to you from the Rabbit Hole Studio, where you, as our listeners, will experience some wit and wisdom, some smartassery, and a mother and daughter questioning, are we even related? My name is Bobby Joy, and my co-host is my mom, Jane, and we are here to entertain and inform for the next little bit.
Oh, my gosh. So that means we need to be informed ourselves. Is that right?
A little bit.
So for our listeners, just so you know, we are recording right now on the upcoming 250th anniversary of our country. God bless America. Woo-hoo. And we have a lot of countries that listen to us. I don't even know what the total is. Is it 59 now, Bobby?
It's somewhere around there. I haven't looked lately, but it's a lot.
We have a lot. And so we just want to say we're celebrating and we're happy about that. And anyway, so previously, we had recorded a podcast regarding the water quality. Do you remember that, Bobby?
I do.
And we talked about the poor water quality here in Iowa because Iowa ranks really high in nitrates and other chemicals that are in our water supply. And Bobby, you had a lot of points that you brought up during that time period.
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of research. I tried to be as informed as I could be coming into it.
And it got to a point where we were reviewing a lot of the studies. And not just Iowa. We talked about other states, but we do have homes in Iowa, and so we talked about that a lot. But at one point, I said, you know what? We need an expert. And one of our experts happens to be someone that I know, and I know her very well. She is a sister of mine. She was actually my sister-in-law, but we consider ourselves sisters anyway. And it is Christine Curry. And Christine is our guest in the studio today. And Christine is an environmental activist. She is someone who has done an awful lot of work being an advocate for clean air, clean water, and she's also quite the artist. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff. So welcome, Christine, to the show.
Thank you, Jane. It's great to be with you guys.
So now you heard the introduction and you know that we have talked about water quality, and you and I have talked about water quality, and you have done so much. And maybe you can kind of give our listeners a little bit of a rundown of kind of the things that you've been involved with.
Well, since coming home to Iowa 10 years ago, I have been studying our landscape quite, deeply. I've literally had my boots on the ground and involved with several organizations, attending conferences. My first conference back was the Iowa Environmental Council in 2016. I attended that first conference. I knew we had some major issues going on, but I had no idea how bad it was until I started really looking at, some of the data and some of the work that was being done on the landscape here in Iowa. That was my first introduction coming back home.
So you and I have talked about the high cancer rates in the state of Iowa, and we talked about water quality all over the U.S., but Iowa in particular, because you are such an advocate for clean water. Some of the things that we had talked about, I'm not sure that they're still at the top of the list, and maybe you can kind of tell us, what are the things that you and the environmental agencies are looking at to help with the dirty water?
Well, basically, Iowa has about 87% of our land is covered by an intensive agriculture system, of two-crop system of corn and beans, and we have 25 million concentrated animal operations of pigs. We have 58 million chickens in concentrated animal operations, along with thousands or millions of other animals in these, tight concentrated areas. And when you look at all the inputs that are put on the landscape, for instance, we have 53 million pounds of pesticides including herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides, applied annually, in addition to all the manure, like 110 billion pounds on this landscape. We also have the most altered land. We have tiling, which because you've had farmland, Jane, and most of our land, our farmland is tiled. So all these natural habitats, the natural wetlands that filtered our water and held our soil in place are all gone now. Less than 1% of our original prairie that covered our landscape is now gone. And so we've turned this into a whole different landscape. And the heavy rains that are happening now, the infrequent consistency with heavy rains and extreme droughts. And when we have these heavy rains, all the chemicals in the soil run off through the tile drains and into the ditches. And it all ends up into our waterways. And this is one of our major problems. When you think about the 53 million pounds of the chemicals alone, just a toxic recipe really for cancer. And that's exactly what we have going on now. And it's been confirmed just from looking at some of the data alone. We do have the highest nitrate, levels in the world. Not only that, but we also have the largest nitrate removal system at the Des Moines Waterworks, which also serves about 600,000 people in central Iowa. That is one of our major problems, is the nitrates. And almost everybody in Iowa who has been listening to the news, that's a pretty hot topic now. And even with our current legislation that's been going through, a lot of this now is on the forefront of the tabletops as far as the conversations and wanting to get this fixed, because everybody is talking about it.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions here, Christine, because the nitrate level has been in the media for quite some time. But here recently, as of this past week, you had mentioned that we do have an incredibly large or sophisticated infrastructure for removal of nitrates in the state of Iowa, but it was overwhelmed. It was overwhelmed too. That's how bad it is this is like a mega system. And yet this past week, people were advised that we had very, very dangerously high nitrates in the water, correct?
That's right.
I think the other thing, and Bobby, I know you looked up a lot of this, and I mentioned it earlier, is, the PFAS and the VOCs, which are considered forever chemicals.
Right.
Those do not come out of your system.
Right.
And that goes into your DNA, that passes on to your kids, your grandkids, and the high cancer rates. And people are going, why is everybody getting cancer? And we've talked about food additives and all the synthetics and things that go into food. But folks, we're talking about the water. And it's not, we've mentioned it before. It's not like you can just fabricate water somewhere. We have to have this water. And so that's why, Christine, I want everybody to know just how important this is and how important your work that you're doing is. And you work with an awful lot of people to advocate for cleaner water. And so some of the actions that you have taken have been what? What can you share with the listeners?
Well, I think there's for people who really want to learn a lot more, there are so many great ways to get involved now. There's been a host of different events that the public can get involved with just to learn a little bit more about it. The Iowa Environmental Council has teamed up with the Harkin Institute at Drake University. They've held cancer and environmental risk factor community sessions. In fact, this past year they had through the several of the counties throughout Iowa, they've had listening sessions with cancer listening sessions, and they are going to continue that this summer. And you can go to their website, the Iowa Environmental Council website, and look for the different areas and the times that they're going to be in these communities. They've had a huge outreach from these communities throughout Iowa, because almost everybody that if it's not your own family, it's a friend or somebody close that you work with that has had cancer or is or has been recently diagnosed with cancer. We're second in the nation, and we have the fastest growing rates of cancer in the nation.
And
So,
that should be alarming to all of our listeners. And again, it isn't just Iowa. We are very, very high, but
yeah.
it isn't just Iowa. We said it in in our previous podcast regarding this topic. I'm not going after farmers. I love farmers, love the farmers. That's our food source. That's our food source. But we have to come to a realization that, the chemicals that big industry is putting into the seed, we talked about this Roundup Ready seed.
That's right.
The fertilizers, the herbicides, all of that goes into our water source. And
that's right.
Everyone should be alarmed. Now, you mentioned that we could contact these agencies and we could, attend some of those meetings. But I'm asking now, as just me as an individual, just me, what could I do? Because we have a lot of listeners that are going, I really, other than hearing this podcast and hearing what a problem it is, what can I do as an individual?
Well, I think one thing I know, and I'm not into politics at all, but here's one of the things, Jane, we have to hold our representatives accountable. We have to let them know that this is not okay. The status quo is not working, and we have to come to some solutions. There's a great group of farmers, and I work with several farmers throughout Iowa. As a matter of fact, the Iowa Farmers Union, Practical Farmers of Iowa, there's 3 farmers that have come together, 2 Republicans and an independent. Their names they call themselves the Loeb Rangers. They are in the Des Moines Loeb, and they have a campaign out now. So you can go to their website, the Loeb, LOBE, Rangers.com, and they're actually hosting a field day. They have done all kinds of great social media posts about what they know is working, what they know that's not working. One of them has been in the seed corn sales business for a number of years, but they want to see change on the landscape. It's not working clearly. The voluntary nutrient reduction strategy is not working. And we have to make changes. And they are saying it's time. And they're farmers. They want change because they know that they can make a difference by their land practices. And so they use several different examples.
And I think that's a great idea, is to look that up and, see what we can do individually. We also talked about industries that are contributing to this, this hazard. It's sad because you're absolutely right when you say we have to hold our representatives accountable. And I don't care what side of the fence you're on, folks. This is not about that. This is about our livelihood. This is about our future. This is about our DNA. This is about what we're passing on to our children and grandchildren. And the fact is we do have industries out there that contribute to this problem too. And so we've talked about runoff, from the farmland. We do have a lot of farmland. We've talked about that, but there's a lot of industries out there that are contributing to this. And what really irritates me or chaps my hide is that they get fined and then they just go on their way. And most of these companies can pay those fines. They're like, okay, well, fine me, and then I'll be on my way.
I'll share a story. In March 24, the new co-op in near Red Oak, Iowa, had a 250 million gallon fertilizer spill. It killed close to 1 million fish in the Nishnabotna waterways. They hardly had to pay anything. They finally, this group of citizens got together and formed the Nishnabotna Water Defenders. And they have filed a lawsuit, to get repercussions for the river. And just think about if people aren't looking at some of the things that take place in our waterways. I test water at the Jordan Creek, with our Isaac Walton League's Nitrate Watch program. And I also test for salt watch, which is chloride runoff. I test that stream and I'm looking, so I see things that happen. Sometimes there'll be some dead fish, say, or somebody's thrown in some, plastics or whatever. Or I've seen clouds of white, something being dumped in one of the waterways. I take pictures, I turn it into the local DNR to let them know what I've found. Once people start looking about what's in their local waterways, you'll learn a lot, and you also see what's going on by testing your local waterways. It's a way to have conversations. It also educates the public through this programs like Nitrate Watch, and anybody can get a free kit delivered to them. I highly recommend people who live, especially in the rural areas or in smaller rural towns where the utilities can't possibly afford to keep up with clearing out everything in the waterways. So if you want to just start testing your wells or your local streams, if you're a farmer, you can test, your runoff, from your fields to see, are you getting values of nitrate leaving your farm fields, through the waterways.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, I was just going to say so you can start, especially depending on where you live, even the utilities. Last summer, I had a woman that I just met, and she ordered one of the nitrate watch kits. She tested her tap water in Des Moines, and it was 10 parts per million. She put in a reverse osmosis system. Just a few days later, it cost $2,000, but then hers was zero.
And how sad is that, though? That we have companies or we have utilities that are supposed to be providing us with regulated levels of water, and yet they don't. And then we have to go out and purchase additional systems just so that we can have clean water. I mean, that really that pisses me off too. Sorry,
yeah, but Jane, they're doing all they can. They don't have the capacity. Millions of gallons are coming in at 15 parts per million.
Right.
And they have to, like Des Moines Water Works does the best they can, and they have to. That's why they've had a water ban, because they've had to allocate to make sure that they can supply their customers with low enough levels of, to meet the EPA standards, which is 10 parts per million. But we know from science and research that was from the Clean Water Act from 1972.
Yeah.
And that's obsolete now. We know that 3 parts per million for a given period of time, you can get cancer.
You mentioned, Christine, about, a fish kill, what a significant one it was at the Nishnabotna. People kind of go, it's just fish. Really, to be honest with you, that can be some people's attitudes. It's just fish.
Oh, yeah.
Let's focus on this. It's not just fish. It's
right.
The ground, it's in the ground. It's also feeding your cattle. It's feeding your sheep. It's feeding that's watering your animals downstream.
And if you're fishing,
if you're fishing and you take that home, and you're eating it and your kids are playing in those creeks, there's a lot more to it. And I think people are a little narrow-minded on this. And, you've talked to me about this for years, and I know you thought that it was just rolling off my back at the time. It wasn't. I was actually listening to you, my sister. But there is a lot, and we just need to know as individuals what we can do. And so we have to, as you mentioned, hold our representatives accountable, and we have to be vocal about that.
I think
that's the first thing. I think we, the people, just like any other thing that's happened, Jane, women being able to vote. How does it happen? We have to have this movement. And I think in Iowa, we do have this movement now. I just wanted to share another resource. Neil Hamilton he initiated the Iowa Nature Summit, which is at Drake University. Now it's kind of becoming an annual conference. This will be the fourth year for it. But he writes a comprehensive monthly nature notes, and you can find them on iowanature.org. And he has a beautiful comprehensive list of all the different articles about our water quality, what's happening for the legislative sessions, and what's happening with the latest nationally and regionally and for Iowa. That's a great resource too. And I want to share that with you because we do have a lot of internet or a lot of national environmental groups and reporters that are doing great reports on Iowa. Carrie Gillum is a leading authority on glyphosate. She's written 2 books called The Monsanto Papers and Whitewash, all about corruption behind Monsanto and the chemical industry. She also is the lead editor for the new Lead. And she has covered the Iowa crisis extensively with some great reporting and some video clips too. So that's another great report that's available for us.
Okay.
And it just shows you that we're getting all this national attention too. This is a public health crisis that we have in Iowa.
Right.
It's not just an environmental issue, and it affects everybody in all of our life.
And Bobby, you were going to add something?
Yeah. So, you're talking about what we can do as people, just everyday, day-to-day life, and I know a lot of people are hesitant to join groups or speak out publicly about it. There's a lot of things that we can do just as one person living in our towns and cities. We talk about the water ban for watering our lawns so as not to put that extra strain on the nitrate processing facility. That's a huge one. They're lawns, people. It's grass. Get over it. It's going to die. It's Mother Nature. Along with that, our use of pesticides and things in our own home. So when we use that Roundup weed killer around our homes, when we use, certain pesticides and things, and we don't really think about it as just a homeowner, as an individual, that this is also adding to that groundwater. The pesticides, also things like stop dumping stuff where it's not supposed to be dumped.
Right.
Paints, thinners, gasoline, motor oil. Just because it can go somewhere doesn't mean that it should.
Right.
And it does add to those pollutants. It does create that strain on our resources that we have. I know a lot of people are upset about the water ban and things like that. But like I said, it's just grass. Let's start treating it like it's just grass.
Let's focus on our humans before we worry about that.
Let's stop spraying it 100 times a summer with pesticides because we want it to look the best in the neighborhood.
Well, not only that, Bobby, our pets are affected by that. I walk my dogs. I've always walked my dogs 3 to 5 miles a day in these urban areas where they've had pesticides and herbicides put down on the grassways. And we wonder why I wash my dog's feet every time when I get back.
Absolutely.
But look at all the stuff that gets on your pet's feet when they're out running around. That is true. The majority, I believe it's like 90, maybe it's just 3% of our human consumption as far as the chemicals go. The rest of it is agriculture, the industrial agriculture. And this is not to blame the farmers, and the lobe rangers will tell you that. It's just the system that's been set up, and we've got to figure a way to roll this back. The big corporations, it's been their recipe to have every single seed coated with neonics. It's killing our bees. It's killing our pollinators. What can we do for the home landscaping? We've got these beautiful deep-rooted prairies, and there's a big movement now. It's very cool to have a yard now with a pollinator yard, and you can do a rain garden to help mitigate water runoff and utilize this water properly and have these beautiful prairies as buffers around your urban landscapes as well.
Well, it's funny you talk about the pollinators, Christine. I had somebody here recently who said, I didn't get any type of fruit on my plants. I didn't get any type of vegetables this year. I don't know what the problem was. They grew big. They just didn't produce. And I said, do you have plenty of bees and everything to pollinate those? We had the area sprayed because I didn't really like all those insects around. And it's like, what the heck? Let's think about what we're doing here, folks, because you're killing the pollinators. And I do that. I mean, I don't spray because I have pollinator plants all over my yard. I mean, I look for my flowers and my plants that are all pollinators. I want the bees and I want all of that. And I think people, when they go to buy those types of things, think about what you're putting on these plants and think about the fact that you are killing pollinators and what you're doing to our soils. And And Christine, I really want to thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate you. And like I said, I know, sister, that you've been talking to me about this for several years now and just trying to get everybody's attention on it. And I'm hopeful that some of our listeners will definitely take your words to heart and contact or look up the sites that you gave them. So any last words before we close?
I just would like to say that the Isaac Walton League has some great programs, community programs to get involved and learn more. There's free webinars, great teacher resources as well. You can go to isaacwaltonleague.org or even look up nitratewatch.org. And I'll do a plug because they're going to be having their awareness week starting July 26th through August 1st.
Okay. Now, I don't know when people will be listening to this, but they can look up that website and they can see when that's going to be, correct?
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's probably all we have for today. Again, Christine, thank you so much for your expertise and what you're doing for our environment. We really appreciate you. And we appreciate all of our listeners joining us at the Rabbit Hole Studio. Be sure to follow us. We look forward to spending time with you. Please like us. And if you have positive feedback for us, or if there's a topic that you want us to talk about, drop us a short email at boomerandgenxer@gmail.com. If you have hate mail, we're not interested. You can send that on over to Monsanto. They don't really care about it anyway. And you know where you can put that. So until next week, I'm Jane Burt.
And I'm Bobby Joy.
And you're stuck with us. Peace out.
Later.